So today, and I'll let the guys jump in a second, but basically today's episode, well, actually from Wednesday and today. I'm sorry, not Wednesday. Did I say Wednesday? I meant to say Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Thursday at 8 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
and Saturday at 8 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just make that correction. So we today was toxic.
Y'all got to help him out. You know, if he gets a little,
I know, right?
He's having a little trouble here, but y'all got to help him out.
See, Brian is using my intellect. He usually do the correction. So
okay.
So yeah, so it's a topic that we've hit on throughout all of our series, but we decided to just go ahead and do a full topic on toxic masculinity and the falsity of what that actually represents. We realize that masculinity is what the world needs today, and but for some reason the world hates it and wants to run away from it, and then also wants to feminize men and the world today and make men not so much masculine anymore. And it's needed in the earth. I'm gonna get past it to my brothers. Mm-hmm. Actually, Horace had a great. Go ahead, Horace.
No. I was gonna say basically, I always I consider myself what is a traditional male, and my wife says I'm a dinosaur, but I consider myself to be a.
Well, we know the wife is always right, so I don't know. Yeah.
but one of the things that I say is I really don't have. They're trying to get us men to be say that get in touch with our feminine side, right? Mm-hmm. And I say I don't have a feminine side. My feminine side is my wife. There is nothing feminine about me. So I don't really look at it in terms of if I have a question that relates to females, I ask my wife because she happens to be one, and she has an understanding. So, and when it's a male situation, she looks at me because I'm the man. So I kind of have a little bit of experience with that. So that's how we go.
You got a perspective. I got you.
Amen. And I couldn't agree with Horace more. He right on the money with that. I think it's kind of odd that we're trying to give guys something that we never had on our own and we never can have. We can never experience what it's like to be a woman. I don't care how hard we try. We don't have the parts. We don't have the mindset. We're not God. We can't create ourselves in that space. And I think that, like Daryl was saying before, masculinity is needed. And toxic masculinity in particular, we're not over the top. We're just being the men that God called us to be. And in that space, I think it's room. It's a lot of room in the world for that man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you don't think there's any of the femininity in terms of men at all? I mean, it's like either one or the other. What am I hearing here?
Well, no.
Go ahead, Go ahead.
No, it's. See, I think we get it a little twisted. Because what is femininity, right? I love my children, right? Mm-hmm. So I love my wife, I love my children, but I love it from a manly perspective, right? Mm-hmm. So I think what we try to say sometimes, like society tries to tell us, they try to take the femininity meaning showing love, but that's ridiculous, right? Because if I could be a man and love my children. I hug my son, I kiss my son, right? He's my son, I love him just as much as my daughter. So that doesn't mean that I'm being any less masculine. But I think what happens is they try to say, well, if you're doing that, that's your feminine side. No. I'm still a man. I'm just loving from a man perspective. So there is no feminine side to me at all.
I think what a lot of people are saying when they talk about a feminine side is the sensitivity aspect, right? Women tend to have a little bit more, and you talk about, just from the hormone aspect of it, women tend to have a little bit more emotional focus. Now we got a woman right here, so she can kind of help us with this understanding, right?
Please do.
Being a little bit more directive, a little bit more testosterone driven, fired up, focused. And I think what a lot of them are referring to on the feminine side, not that we should be females, but that sensitivity aspect that comes out in terms of how we balance that with that, that stronghold that we've got. So
I think women we're more sensitive. Mm-hmm. We're also more intuitive, and I think we have the ability to often look deeper or even feel deeper into a situation than men do. We actually see.
Yeah, but do you think we have any of that at all? I mean, are we like without?
I definitely do. I do.
Okay.
I think that you do. I think men do have some of that, but I think it is a stronger trait or a stronger characteristic in women.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So
just like in men, you're physically stronger than women are.
But there is
and
a
you can't
balance,
change that.
right?
Yeah.
So balance.
When the two are together, it should balance. Yes.
But I think where that balance comes in at though is that, and that's why I think God says it's not good that man be alone, because that's where the balance comes in.
Exactly.
I mean, I believe from the start it was intended for man to do those. Now, by the way, all men have testosterone and estrogen to some degree. It's just really, really high and really, really low.
Exactly.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And likewise with women. I mean, there's some of that in women too. And when they get a little too much, then they grow facial and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
But with that balance is what's necessary in the two, because those two make up the family of the earth, the family of God, that God intended to do some work on the earth.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So there's this balance that comes from matching or mating together, right?
Yes.
You get, both sides that come together, and we need both sides of that, right?
Yes. Yes.
We do.
Being equally yoked.
In terms of what we're talking about, if both of us are trying to be the man,
right?
Not gonna work.
Got a problem.
Both of us trying to be the woman, and then we got a problem as well.
Got a problem.
If we can complement each other, then we actually broaden each other in perspective, right?
That's right.
Right.
I think we're on the same page.
Yes.
I think we're in agreement.
I think.
Okay.
No, I think what happens, like, it's happened to me before, where my wife has said to me, like, she normally does it to the side because my wife's not. I'm the boisterous one, and so she'll come pull me aside. Hey,
pull you aside.
You're a little wrong.
You know when that tag is coming, when you start feeling something just kind of slide.
Well, no, she doesn't say anything. It's typically her face. She can't hide what she feels.
Okay.
So I'll look, and I'll see that look, and it's like, you know what? I need to adjust what I'm doing.
Back that down, right?
Yeah.
It's like the words just gradually start changing.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that sounds like you guys had a good show. All right.
Yeah.
So listen, there's a lot going on. So we can throw in a few different places here, but I think the most recent hottest news is the Derek Chauvin sentencing that took place yesterday. Mm-hmm. So 22 and a half years. There's been a lot of discussion already about what is that? Is that good? Is that bad? Do we agree? Do we disagree? Do we want more? Do we want less? What's the thoughts around the house here today about how all that went?
Go ahead, Brian.
I can start off. I'd just say that I think that first and foremost, I'm glad he got time.
That's right.
I think it would have been atrocious had he walked away with what his defense attorney is asking for, which was just put him on probation or something crazy for a couple of months and let him walk. So I'm grateful that he got time. 22 and a half, that's still a long time. It's still a long time, regardless of how you look at it. And I think he's probably going to do, more than likely he'll do half of that time. So that's going to put him somewhere around 11 and a half years, somewhere in there. And I think that for what he did, I think that's justifiable time. Could he have gone longer? Probably. But I think it's justifiable to say that he got the time that he got. And I think that is something, a step in the right direction for me as a Black individual to be able to see that and say, okay, justice seemed to have played out. The wheels of justice seem to have rolled this thing out in a manner that I think that is suitable as a community to look at that and be like, you know what? Okay, that's suitable. And I don't feel great about it because George Floyd is still gone. Right. And Chauvin still have it's a bad rap, a bad look for police still. But it is good that they actually have an opportunity for him to do time as a result of that for the crime that he did.
Yeah.
What else?
In the short term, there's positive in it, right? A crime was committed. Someone got punishment for that crime. Okay, awesome. In the long term, I don't think it changes anything. I think that there's a lot of work still to be done within the community, meaning between police and citizens. Citizens themselves need to start taking control or maybe accountability for their own communities. That we need to start being more accountable to what's going on in our communities. And I think that those things are more important. If anything, it should have opened our eyes to like, hey, we need to be more vigilant, especially all the other stuff that's going on in our community.
Right.
This is just a blip. This is just a blip on the radar. I don't think it changes anything.
Well, what do you think this means in terms of policing? I mean, that's a good point. What does this change? Does it change anything? Does it not? Is this a wake-up call to policing in terms of policemen? Policeman suddenly feels like, okay, they're really paying attention and they're putting people in jail. Mm-hmm. Is this going to make a difference?
I think it does. No, just jumping real quick. I think it does. But I think it does from there's a good part of it, and then there's a bad part of it. The good part is that I think that a lot of cities and municipalities right now are looking into that and looking at on different ways to police, especially in our community. Mm-hmm. So that's the good part. We're starting to see a lot of that. Mm-hmm. Now, because of not just this case here, but a lot of things that happened in the last year. This is actually sometimes a disagreement on the show when we talk about this a little bit. But there's also a bad part because unfortunately, because they've been cops have been made to be the bad guys. Right now, we're seeing cities lose cops from the perspective like, you know what, I had enough and I'm out. And unfortunately, that typically hits our community. Mm-hmm. And so what's happening, we have a lot of communities right now that are where the cops are saying, I'm out. If I have to retire early, I'm out. I don't want to put up with it and they're getting out of it. And because if you remember, this is a situation that happened right when the judgment was made about Derek the first time. The day after, or maybe it was 2 days after, then that thing in Columbus popped up where the cop shot the girl. But then when you watch the video, it's like, well, wait a minute, she was about to pretty much gut this other 14-year-old girl at the same time. Mm-hmm. So when we demonize them to the point to where it's like, let's get rid of all of them. And even though I know they say, well, we're not going to get rid of all of them, it affects the morale and whatnot. We need to really be able to really make some changes but I think that goes back to our first conversation. Masculinity is needed in the community. Yeah. Masculinity is needed in the community to be a voice, because sometimes I think things happen in our community where they never asked us in the first place.
Mm-hmm. So, that the wake up call, as you just described it, obviously it affects, let's say, good cops and bad cops, right? Mm-hmm. I think anybody who's in that position at this point has to say, you know what, this position has so much pressure because if I make one mistake in my 30-year career, yes, right? Now it's all on video. Now, everybody's taking pictures. One mistake could cost me not only my career, my pension, but my life in jail, And so like you mentioned that cop in Columbus, I can only imagine with him. And there was another one on recently where a woman, for some reason, was in a car and she literally started shooting at this policeman, the black policeman. Yeah. Policeman had to shoot her because she was shooting at him.
Right.
And next thing you see is a picture of him down on his knees crying. I mean, so you can't, get away from the fact that there's a reality here that, listen, everybody's not a bad cop. Everybody's not trying to kill somebody. Mm-hmm. Some people are trying to do their job. Yeah. On the other hand, you have people who have become cops because they want the opportunity to kill somebody, right? And if they feel like they're not going to be able to do that anymore, then look, I don't need to be bothering them. They don't want to. Right. So it causes a stir in the whole population. Mm-hmm. But is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Because sooner or later you're going to refill, and what are you going to refill those positions with?
I think one of the things that I think that, and I'm not a police officer, so I can't necessarily say exactly what their training looks like. But one thing that always puzzles me in this whole process is the perspective of policing, right? So even when I look back at the very historical perspective of policing, I can generally say it's always been negative towards communities of color, right? Especially Black people. And to me, I find it very hard to understand or even to process how police can't get that, how they don't understand that from their vantage point, how you have to change the whole persona of how they do things. And I don't like the language defund the police. Let me just put that out there too, right? I think that the language is horrible. Yeah. I think that the language actually, I understand it. I think it's strategic, but I think it's horrible because it's deplorable too, because I don't want my neighbors trying to come and take care of me when I'm in need. I want to call 911 and I want a police officer to come, and I want them to come with a gun and every other tool that they have access to. Right. However, I want them to have perspective and understanding that, listen, for Black people, for the most part, and this is any city USA, which is crazy, right? They felt some type of oppression towards the police for the most part, for the better part of every Black community across the United States. Everybody have the same feeling. Okay, we can't trust them because this is how they treat us. Right. And if I'm a cop, they have to take some ownership on that and say, okay, what did we do or what can we do different to change this? Because we can't keep going on, like, as you just said a minute ago, we can't go in the future like this. And we need police that actually want to do the job and want to do it the right way. So I think that's the first thing you got to take a look at. And then aside from that, like I said, as far as changing the language, I would prefer, instead of even saying defund, if you would even choose to reorganize some of the resources that we have to be able to put other things in place that will be a great help. I think when you have youth programs like the gang initiative program that come at least and be able to help, I think that's a great thing. I think now when you want to add the mental health component to that as well, I think that could be a good thing too. Right. But I don't think that the answer is always to just shoot or to kill or to harm or to allow cops to get so stressed out that they can't do their job in a meaningful way to just honor the humanity of the individual that's on the other side of them.
Well, I mean, there's certainly a shifting that's happening already. I mean, not in the budget that just came out, I think they took like $5 million off of the police budget. And they put another $400 million into community, $4.5 million into community aid. So they're certainly shifting now. The one thing that has me really thinking, and I don't know if you guys can check this, it seems to me that the police response in the communities has gotten much slower with all the violent stuff that's been going on. You know, when you hear about shooting, and remember when all the protests were going on, you had all those protests, burning, stuff like that. Police don't show up until after it's over, right? Now they're investigating it. But while it's going on, not a policeman in sight. And I don't think that's just, well, they weren't in the area or they're not responding quick enough. I honestly think they do not want to get in the middle of those firefights because it always makes them look bad.
Right.
So, you know, that's not necessarily a good thing for us either. If policemen won't, and when you call, they're not coming till the shooting stops. That's not a good thing either.
Another thing I just want to say too that I find to be interesting, at least in our city, I guess I'm kind of puzzled sometimes too. Like I would think with the current environment that police would I would want to police with somebody instead of somebody having their own car. I'd like a partner, right? Sure. So you can work in teams so that you also, I don't want to say have good cop, bad cop perspective, but at least you can bounce off of, you know, what it is that you're saying with your partner being right there, opposed to just immediately responding and just doing whatever it is that comes, you know, first thing to come to your mind. I'm not saying that, you know, I realize that the short time frame to make a response, but it'd be good if you had a partner that was right to be like, hey, this is what I'm thinking, or this is what I'm considering as you're going to the call, or this is what I'm going to do to you, you know, you back me up, whatever the case may be. But I think communication helps in that manner. And you don't have two hot heads coming at a situation in the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, now I understand too, there's legal responsibility amongst partners.
Yes.
Right. The new laws that just came down from the state.
Right.
They are responsible to each other. So not only if your partner does something, if you don't stop them, if you see them doing something and you don't intervene, then you have responsibility to that, legal responsibility to that as well.
Well, that's what's happening right now with the Derek Chauvin case.
Right.
The other officers are also being charged.
Right. But now it's even more so because then that rule wasn't there.
It wasn't there.
But I think in that I think what the tough part here is I'm looking at two different videos, right? I'm looking at that video, which I don't know. I saw it a while ago. What was that? Like an hour? I don't know how long the video was, but it was a long video. And I'm sorry, the Derek Chauvin, the George Floyd video. So when I watched that video, there was a lot of time in there to make some decisions and say, hey, but come on, that's enough, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But taking that same thing, I think if I was the second cop in that car with the let's say the hothead cop, or whatever, the one that actually got actively involved, I would have a problem with that because how much time did the Columbus police have? It was literally under 30 seconds to make decisions and things just started to happen. Right. When he got out of the car, you saw over here the girl's father was kicking another girl's brains out, and then over here she was getting arrested. So it was so quick. I'd hate to be the second cop, whether he was right or wrong, because now what's going to happen to me? Right. Because that was so rapid fast compared to George Floyd, where that was about a good 30 minutes or whatever of the incident.
Probably closer to 15 to 20 because he was like on his neck for like 9 minutes.
Yes.
Right.
So
but you had the proceeding all the way through. But keep in mind, in that case, he was a senior officer of the force.
Exactly.
Right.
All new officers.
And they were all brand new. So they're like following his lead. If he says this is okay, this is okay. And he's going through all this, telling them, you know, because some of them, and this is what they're going to argue in their cases, we were telling them, shouldn't we do X, Y, Z? and he was like, no, he's got to do it.
Yes.
So that was a superiority issue there as well.
True.
He had to deal with.
You go up against your boss. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
Senior.
Yes.
So, I mean, going back just for a minute to the sentencing, 22 and a half years, as you said, Brian, probably going to serve a portion of that. A lot of people are upset. Some people, you have all extremes in this country right now. Some people say he shouldn't have been charged at all, right? He's doing his job as a police officer. You have some that say he should go to jail for life, right? Because so you have all these extremes that are mixed up in the midst of this. The thing that really boggled me a bit about yesterday was that the judge, prior to, you have the whole process here of the sentencing where all the family members, everybody comes up and makes their statements, give their appeals of what they think should happen on both sides. The judge had already written a 22-page statement of what his decision was before any of that even happened.
Yeah.
So the whole point of people coming up and making their appeals to sway what should happen was out the window because his decision was already made. They finished. Thank you. Okay, here's what I'm going to say. Boom, boom, boom. So, I mean, what do you guys think about that? I mean, it just doesn't seem like that's the way the system is supposed to work.
Well, this was
That's how it does work.
This was unique. I'm sorry. I think this was a unique situation because the world got to see.
The world was waiting.
The world was waiting.
To see.
Yeah.
This happened on video. So I think it was dealt with in a different way because of the situation, the way that it happened.
Horace, what you have to say?
No, I'm just saying to be honest, that's atypical. Lawyers have discussions, and when you come in for sentencing, that's already decided.
Right.
So they've already, because they all play golf together and they are all dinner buddies, and they'll say after, even sometimes I've seen them say afterwards, hey, I'll see you on Sunday or whatever.
Sure.
They all know each other. So they have relationships. So they negotiate. And your case, like say they may have a bucket of cases. A lawyer may have 10 cases. And they almost like you're not really that important. You're just a number. So I'll give you number 2. If you give me 5 years off of this guy, I'll give you this for that guy. There's all that negotiation that goes on. So this is not nothing that's that's not preordained or pre-thought out before they even come out. So when they come out and say whatever the sentence is,
they already know.
They already knew. So it's not nothing new how these courtrooms work. Because I've gone many times with people through the church, going with people to court, and I've just watched how these guys work and all these lawyers. And I just watch them interact with one another and how they know it. We're talking defense attorney and prosecutor and judge. They all know each other, or it'll be a young prosecutor or a young defense attorney who's the son of so-and-so or the nephew of somebody. So they all know each other. So these sentences are they're all pre-thought out. There's nothing new under this.
Yeah, but this was a little different. Like my wife was saying, they knew everybody was watching, so everything had to be justifiable. I think, by the way, I like the way how you slid that. I go to the courtroom with them with the church. So I like how you slid that in there. Clarity,
oh yeah, no, I don't need no problems with the
law. I think the reasoning that he did the 22 and a half pages was because he wanted to have documentation of exactly why he was making the decision that he was made.
Yes.
But one of the big arguments that was going on was they were saying, I guess this recommended sentence was like 12 years or 12 years. And they were saying that these aggravated things that went along with it, there were 4 different things that made it aggravated, right? The fact that it was in front of a child, the fact that it was, boom, boom, boom.
Yes.
They were saying each of those by stipulation could have doubled the amount of time. And so each. And so what the judge did insinuate was that it was supposed to be 12. He added 10 years to it over the top of the 12 to make it 22 and a half, which was for aggravation. And after that, he said, look, read what I wrote. Right. So people were arguing that he could have gotten easily 30 or 40 years because of those 4 different aggravations that could have kept doubling out the time. So that was some of the frustration on it.
I do, like, as you said, too, I would have a problem, I guess. I understand, I guess, to an extent why the judge did what he did, but it really much was a dog and pony show, if that's the case. If I come there and you already did all your work already. What I do is just it means nothing.
Why you have to go through all that if you're not going to consider it at all?
Right.
He made comments like, this is not based on emotion and all this stuff. In other words, I'm not listening. I'm only going by precedents. I'm not listening to what anybody else said. And again, I think he did that to cover himself because he knew every professional lawyer on CNN, on every other place, was watching and would be watching what he did. Right. And he didn't want somebody coming down his neck talking about what he did right or wrong.
That's right.
But is that really justice? And then also too, why would he have to show his hand that much and let the world know that that's what his hand was anyway? If I would hold that very close to myself. I would be the only person that would know that information, and nobody else wouldn't have a clue. And that might come out in a book 20 years from now.
Right.
But I wouldn't have said that, man. That's just crazy. Like I said, it gives justice. It almost seems false.
Yeah. I mean,
that's falsified to an extent.
Right? It's like, why you put people through all this emotional stress, coming up there, testifying, Chauvin's mom, George Floyd's family, all of pleading their case. And you're like, okay, well, here's what I already decided. I mean, what's up with that?
Well, formality.
Yeah.
He had to do. He had to go through the process.
Now we know still, by the way, that there's federal charges that are still coming.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
And the federal charges oftentimes have even longer sentencing than the state charges. I think one of them, the civil rights one, I think is up to 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
So all that still got to play out. He's going to appeal this. Of course, he already tried, wants to get out of it. You got these other three that are going to be, this is going to be going on
for years.
Yeah.
And
the whole 10, 20 years he's going to do. Right. And you obviously have never seen Congress work because they already know, what they're going to vote, but they got to give a half an hour speech. I already know what you're going to do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we already know what the vote is. So this is, like I said, this all the same. This is just the way that our system works. That, Congressman so-and-so gets 15 minutes to talk. I already know what you're going to vote, Congressman. Why am I hearing you? So, and that's the same thing. I just think that's just how it is. It's just the system and the whole formality of how things work is just a waste of time.
Well, it shall continue on. I want to say to our audience, if you guys got any more comments, I don't know if you guys can't see them, but we got lots of comments that are coming in from people about these and responding to. But if you have more comments, don't hesitate to keep sending those in. But I want to go back a week because last week we had this other big thing happen, and that was Juneteenth, which was great, but it seemed to come out of nowhere. It's like 2 days. Even the government didn't know they were going to be closed last Friday. We had from my business, we had meetings scheduled for last Friday with the government. Right. Wednesday, this announcement comes out. Okay, we're now going to sign in a national holiday. Boom, boom, boom. The banks didn't even know to close yet. Everybody else didn't know to close. But this thing seemed to come out of nowhere. I don't know what your opinion of this is. We've known that they've been talking about this for a while now.
Right.
But all of a sudden, they got votes from Republicans and Democrats to make this a national holiday. And by the way, the implications of that we'll talk about in just a moment. But why all of a sudden do we have so much legal support for Juneteenth?
Politics. Anytime something moves that fast, it's politics.
Yes.
And it disgusts me because one of the things that they pretend as if Juneteenth wasn't already a holiday. Guess what?
Right.
It was already a holiday.
Exactly.
It was a holiday for the last since 1865. We were celebrating it. So regardless who recognizes it's a holiday. Mm-hmm. And when it happens that fast, don't play. I hate when people patronize Black folks.
Yes.
Don't patronize us.
Right.
We didn't need a national holiday. And on top of that, then you show all the violence that happened on Juneteenth on the media.
Right.
So I wish you would have left it alone because we was just fine without it.
That's my question. Definitely is politics, but what are the politics? What was done? What was traded to sway people to suddenly vote to make this again, not just something on record, a national holiday every year now? And granted, it was already a holiday, like you said, here in the state of New York, right? The past couple of years, I believe, it had been celebrated by many, not as many as we like, but many Black African-American people throughout the country.
Yes.
But a national holiday is a whole nother issue. We are now competing, quote unquote, and this is what we got to talk about this shirt about with the 4th of July. What, 6 weeks, I think, before the 4th of July? This is going to come now every year as a national holiday. This is a whole nother scale of confusion, in my opinion.
Well, I think it's kind of like you said too. In a sense, it's real whack because I think that we still completely separate July 4th and Juneteenth, and I understand why we separate them. Hear me. I understand that, but I think that when it's almost like, okay, Black Americans, I'm gonna give you Juneteenth so that the rest of white America can have July 4th, and we can be one happy country. and I kind of think that that's how they're trying to close the gap on things, and everybody's getting something. Going back to what you said earlier, so the Asian hate thing that just came out a couple months ago as well, right? There had to be something that was there, and I gotta believe, no disrespect towards anybody saying this, but with it being Pride Month and that type of thing too, I believe that on the backside there's somewhere the LGBTQ community is going to receive something too, and it's just because now you can silence everybody and say, okay, everybody got something, so everybody should be happy and everybody should shut up now. And I just think, like you said, that's to me, I think the politics is coming into play with what it is that we're doing.
So do you think this is just trading off then?
I mean, that's always what it is. That's always what it is.
Well, you give me this national holiday, and we're going to give you Pride Month, or we'll give the Asian Americans. And what about the Indians, American Indians, right? I mean, are they going to get a holiday as well? Take away Columbus Day, and we'll have
I believe that's going to happen. I believe that Columbus Day is numbered.
Yeah, that's Indigenous People Day anyway on certain calendars. So we're giving everything to everybody. Huh?
It's not a national holiday yet, though.
True.
It's coming.
Think about the contrast that this makes, right? On Juneteenth, June 19th, right? We celebrate the fact that we as African Americans who were slaves were finally told, not only you're free, and by the way, you're supposedly now an American, right? Prior to this, for how many 100 years or so, the July 4th holiday had been going on. Everybody else in the country, aside from us, was celebrating this. And now we've been asked to come in the fold. But this brings back to light 6 weeks before the national holiday, which we're all supposed to be a part of, the fact that it took y'all how many years to even let us know we were free, not to mention that we shouldn't have been slaves in the first place. Right. So nationally now, this is recognized. The whole nation is supposed to stop, not just the African Americans, the whole nation is supposed to stop and say, hey, we recognize Juneteenth, all the things that were done to slaves, all the things, blah, 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 before we come into this. So, this shirt is the question, does this mean that, slide up just a little bit, take a seat. Does this mean that, we're anti-July 4th if we're celebrating Juneteenth, or do the two actually somehow go together? Because every year now, before we get to July 4th, we're reminded, hey, it took us a whole 100 years plus to let y'all be citizens, real citizens.
Exactly.
How are these two going to work together?
It creates a division. It goes back to what I was saying before. I think it's like, okay, Black America, you got this, or Black Twitter, you got this, the Black Twitterverse, whatever it is. And then you go back, okay, for those that are nationalists for the country or the patriots, okay, you got your July 4th holiday. And I think that is something that just will separate us as people. And I think that you should make them so that they're together. I don't know how you do that, but if we can market and do all these other things all the time, why can't you make that work?
Right. This is my whole concern, is whether these two things are going, because we already have a divided country, right? Past 4+ years, plus, it's just getting worse. You're on one side or the other. So now you have one holiday for one sector of the country that comes up just before the holiday is supposed to be for the whole country.
Right.
How do these coexist? How do they work? Because they're going to do one or the other. They're either going to allow us to bring the country together, or they're just going to make the country that much more divided. So when, how do we bring this together?
Well, for starters, I don't think that it should have been divided as a Black holiday and a white holiday. Juneteenth, and one of the things I teach a lot of white people at work and people I'm around is that Juneteenth is an American holiday.
That's right.
Once you recognize the American part of what that is, that we were American all along. As soon as we hit Earth, the ground here, we were American from the start. And once you recognize that, and this is a controversy we talked about in our Juneteenth podcast last week. I personally, and I don't remember who said this historically, but somebody had said, at the end of the day, I'm an American because our blood, sweat, and tears was in the soil building this country. Right. So I'm going to accept the July 4th and the Juneteenth And as Americans, everybody needs to accept the Juneteenth and understand the history. Even if you don't do nothing but read a book and eat some barbecue, but at least you understand that this is an American holiday and that it's not a Black or African American holiday. You have to understand this too.
That starts with respect.
It does,
right?
But we have to make sure that as we see the problem with even with Juneteenth, who the faces are who's expressing the story of Juneteenth. It's either going to be so far on one side that, well, I don't even agree with that. Or it's going to be so far this way, like, well, I sort of agree with that, but that's not really the full truth. If you leave it at what it was all along, it was fine. Now, if you want to make a holiday out of it, great, but it's an American holiday and you have to give that respect to it. But the problem is that there's so much hatred put into that. It's sort of like, David, if I knew we was going on your show, and then all of a sudden, but I knew your birthday was like next week. Oh, shoot, we're going on the show. Let me go ahead and celebrate Dave's birthday real quick so I can get on the show. Wait a minute. You're politicizing it and you're patronizing him for some reason that we don't know about yet. And I think that's exactly what happened with this whole Juneteenth thing.
Yeah. I would love to be behind the windows at this point to know how you get. I don't know. I didn't look up what the vote count was. I'd be interested in seeing what the vote count was, how close it was. But how you, obviously, the way things are right now, the way divided we are, you have to have people from the other side to line up to get anything through Congress. Right. And since it didn't go through reconciliation, you probably needed 2/3. You need at least 60 of the votes in the Senate. So you got at least 10 Republican senators, even with all the argument about critical race theory going on right now, got at least 10 Republican senators to sign up and say, okay, yeah, we agree. This should be not just recognized, not just let's put a law out there that says something you respect, or let's just make some memorandum. We haven't had a national holiday since Ronald Reagan. And now all of a sudden we decide we need this to be a national holiday. It just don't
make sense.
Right at all, in terms of where it came from. But the other thing that we've seen, by the way, is the past couple of years, you do see a lot more Black money going into bringing out a lot of these stories. You see a lot more enforced money. ABC has done a lot as a network, but you see, we've been watching some of these stories that have come on Netflix and elsewhere, and you see a lot of stories. I was surprised to see a couple of the stories. The executive producer, LeBron James, or another basketball player, I can't remember which one, financing these stories. And Barack and Michelle also with a huge Netflix contract agreement that they have. These stories are being now driven because people who have money, African Americans, are making these stories get out there, which is a very impressive change.
So, one thing that I think that would be interesting if we were able to do, and align with what you're saying with these stories that's being shared. And that is, normally when you have like the national holidays or when you have both parties coming together and that type of thing, the American flag is shown there and everybody becomes a patriot or everybody's excited about what's going on. I don't think Juneteenth got the same opportunity to have that. Right. Because I don't think that there was people on both sides, like you said just a moment ago, that would come together, get that big American flag and say, this is an American holiday. Right. I think that helps you bridge some of it. That bridges a little bit of the gap. And that helps people to just swallow it and say, okay, you mean this is for all of us? Yeah, this is for all of us. This just ain't for a select few people. This is for all of us that's right here. We need to have that one flag as a big banner and not to do it so that it's divisive in any manner, but it's not.
That's right.
And this thing,
I think this is what you get.
It so came out of nowhere. And, again, think about it. We have been trying to get an anti-lynching bill. In this country.
That's what should be. That's what should have been addressed.
And we can't even get that. But we decide we're going to have a Juneteenth national holiday. Come on now, something ain't right. I'm just saying.
You know what that says? That says that they negotiated something else.
There's
going to be something that comes down the line. It's going to be something.
I want to know what negotiated. That's the
thing. Exactly.
I want to know.
Well, we'll find that out soon enough. But I really believe one of the things that the problem with Juneteenth, and I'm all for it, but the problem is there's division within us. That's right. So there's a lot of us who aren't down with Juneteenth. So we have to get us organized and more in tune with, I think part of it is education, right? I don't think all of us totally understand what it means, how it came about and why it is important. So, because I actually had a conversation with a white friend of mine today, and he was saying, he goes, because he listened to the Juneteenth podcast, and he said, I don't understand why it's so important. So we ended up having So we ended up having, but he was interested in talking about it. So we ended up having a conversation about it, and he's still kind of like, I'm not so sure, especially considering the whole July 4th versus Juneteenth thing. Yeah. So I think the part of it that is so close is an issue.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things really, we as a people have to come together and celebrate it, right? And make it like a big deal. And then, because I think just like anything that's happening in our society now, especially when you look at what happened with the Black Lives Matter. Remember when there was the kneeling and everybody had a problem with it. And then just this past year or a year ago, all of a sudden you saw Black Lives Matter all over the football fields, all over the basketball courts. Right. It just became a thing. And I think we can make that same kind of push, but you need to have everybody on board saying that, hey, this is important to us as a people, not just Black people, but people in general. And until we have that unity piece, then we're going to have division in that. And it's always going to be like a problem with the whole Juneteenth thing.
Yeah, but think about how they tried, even with Black Lives Matter, to turn it into a negative thing almost instantly. They tried to take something which had a positive concept and just flip it as quickly as they could. I think that Juneteenth is an excellent point and a stake in the ground to build off of. I really do. I think
agree.
It's a great opportunity to really share again about this aspect of experience and overcoming. And I think all these other stories that have been shared tie into it very well. It just, the politics of it just makes me off guard about it. But I think the concept of it. Now, one last thing I want to share, I got to talk about on this, and I just got to talk about. I got a little problem with this, and that's this flag. Now, look, this flag to me, I mean, I don't want to be, totally negative on this, but don't it seem a little unfinished to you? I mean, it seems like maybe
it looks like my little daughter
or something. Some gold. I don't know. It's got to be something.
Who made the decision?
Now, look, I understand that all of this. From my understanding, is symbolic. There's symbolism in all of this, from the star representing all 50 states and the Texas state, the starburst talking about new horizons, the horizon in the back, the colors, red, white, and blue. So there's an attempt here. But again, this came up so fast. It seems to me like, maybe we could have done a little bit better with this representatives.
I'm not liking that.
What do you guys think?
Again, my thing is, why can't it symbolize more so of the American flag, some aspects of it, and then still have the date on there? I think, because again, you get, I think that
they get the red, white, and blue. They got a star, so they did bring it back a little. By the way, this flag wasn't just made in the past year. This flag has been around a while, but so they did try and make some connection. But it just seems like, when you compare this to the United States flag, and by the way, so now on Juneteenth, we put both flags up. We put the United States flag up and this flag, I mean, I just don't know.
To me, it's secondhand.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know who agreed upon that. And a lot of people are trying to say that's not even an American holiday. It was just a Texas holiday. So that's what the star in the middle represents. I disagree. But I think at the end of the day, like everything we've said so far, is that it was just a rush thing. Like, hey, let's quickly throw something out there. But the scarier part is once I put a flag out out of my house underneath my American flag, for example,
right,
then the whole street's going to have different flags underneath.
Yeah,
and I think that's what I think Horace and the other guys pretty much are saying the same thing. At the end of the day, what we believe is that this is only an attempt so that other flags can come out. Now, I want to go back just super quick. If you got 30 seconds.
Go.
I knew it was coming.
Before you do that,
okay.
Before you do that, you talk about other flags. So if now we can have a flag,
yes,
right, this Juneteenth flag,
yes.
Why? What about the Confederates? Why can't they have their flag? We have our flag.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, right.
Why can't everybody else have their own flag now? Because now
they have theirs.
Huh?
They've been rocking theirs nonstop.
Yeah, but
anyway.
we've been trying to tear them. The nation's been tearing them down, taking them away. We're burning, we're bringing down stuff. We've been doing all that, right? And now, hey, wait a minute, we got this flag, and this one represents a certain subset of people and how we feel, and this is okay. Yeah. So now, does that justify them coming back and saying, wait a minute, if y'all can have a flag, why can't we have a flag?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the original design. And personally, I don't think we needed a flag. I guess that's my whole point. We never needed a flag.
It's separatism.
So what else were you going to say, Daryl?
Well, I was going to go back to the BLM part. We did a whole podcast on BLM, and one of the things is that BLM was a hijacked organization. It never represented Black people in the first place, and that's the point.
Never.
It never represented Black males. It never represented anything that we actually agreed upon. And so the reason it was blasted all over the stadiums and football stadiums and basketball stadiums everywhere else, because corporate money went in, and other groups that had nothing to do with Black people brought that to the forefront. And this is why we're seeing this today. It's put out there for the reason of, hey, we're going to give you this, but we have an agenda and you don't own any of it.
Wow.
Show me the money, because we about to get paid.
Yeah, false money, right? All the money.
Yeah.
That's it.
This is going to be interesting to watch and see what really comes out of this. But, again, to me, the scariest part of it is you have built this in as a national holiday.
It is.
It's not going away now.
Not going anywhere.
That's a huge lift, right? And so if they had made some kind of a declaration, or we're going to do whatever, but this is a national holiday that is deeply embedded at this point. We've never taken away, that I know of, a national holiday. So, to see where this actually goes and evolves and what really is behind it, I think is going to be real interesting to see.
I'd like to say this also, as an educator, this is going to, because it is now a national holiday, it is going to force the Black history curriculum in the books. This is something that educators have been, people of color that are educators have been pushing to have a more comprehensive Black history curriculum, other than just, I'm not taking anything away from Martin Luther King and Harriet Tubman. But there are a lot more contributions that African Americans have made to society that can be brought out. It will also force the books to change, history, the story of African American history to change and to be told actually the way that it really happened, without sugarcoating it the way that it is presently.
Yep. That's right. But you see already, again, in politics, the debate that's going on right now about critical race theory, where they're trying to say that all of that concept of bringing in that history, African-American history, is about nothing but trying to be more derogatory towards, the impressions of what white men in America have done. Right. That is the battle now. But again, national holiday, you have brought all this stuff.
So now you have to teach it correctly. So, exactly.
Right. You know the crazy part about all that? Critical race theory has been taught since the 70s. So it's not new. They just too dumb to know that you've been teaching it for 50 years.
Right.
To make their case at this point in time. So, so this has stirred up the question of whether this solves problems, whether it stirs. I mean, I understand there are times you just have to push things in, and then you have to smooth it out afterwards. So I'm personally not saying that it's a negative thing. For example, I want to get the impression from that we have this holiday or things like this, or even the flag. I'm not saying these are negatives, because these are certainly pushes in a direction, which does make sense in the long run. I just think there's so much schism politics behind it.
That's right.
And it blurs the whole thing and brings out so many questions, So guys, look, it's 9:00. I got like 2-3 more topics up.
Oh, wow.
I knew that was going to happen. I knew there was no way. I was like, I could have asked best. There's no way we're going to make it through all this stuff. But this was a good conversation. It is great to have you guys hooked up with us tonight. Glad we had to do this little crossover here. And so just remind everybody, Daryl, where they can find your podcast, et cetera, one more time.
So the podcast is Man2Man. It's Man, M-A-N, the number 2, Man 360. And that podcast can be found at pretty much everywhere. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher,
Spotify,
Alexa Music, pretty much anywhere podcasts. Audible. We can be found on Audible, all those places. So definitely go there. You'll be able to catch up on all the shows that we talked about today, from Juneteenth to toxic masculinity to the BLM episode, which was a really, really good one. And then check those out and then and rate the show. Always give us a 5 though. Never give us less than a 5.
wait. You tell us to rate the show, and then by the way, to rate it. Right?
Rate it properly.
That's right.
I mean, I want to say the truth. Look, if I didn't like it,
I always tell people if you don't like it, just delete it.
There you go.
So listen, good luck with all that. I wish you well in terms of, you like the image where we polish that image up for you.
No, that's perfect.
Yes.
That's perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me know. I'll send it to you. No, I'm just kidding. Looking good. So our spirit, everything else going on. Congratulations, guys. Keep up the good work. You have to tell, Brother Warren that he owes us like a visit now. So he may have to come, and do solo when we're on vacation or something. So
you got to talk to that brother about barbecue, man. That's what you do.
There you go. There.
We got an episode coming up about
He's a self-described master.
Yeah.
Self-proclaimed.
And Juneteenth, we're taking a break. He's got to come do the show.
That's right.
That's right. There we go.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you.
All right, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye now. All right. So thanks, everybody. Our time is wound down here, and it's time for us to, get ready to do other things. Had a great conversation.
Yes, that was very good.
Hopefully everybody else enjoyed that as well, and make sure and just share that with somebody. Tell somebody. Lots of opinions running through there. So, maybe you agree with some, maybe you don't. That's okay.
Yeah.
We don't always agree either, but we learn, right?
Yes.
And, I think these are really two important topics in terms of what's happening with policing, what's happening with this whole Juneteenth thing, and where this is all going, where we're going as a nation as well, so keep those things in mind. We have more to talk about, but we'll do it next week.
Yes.
We'll come back next.
A continuation.
There will be more happening. I think we may have more guests on to join us on some of these subjects, so we will do more of this in the future. And, we'll kind of keep things going here. So I think it's time for us to go.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Tomorrow, I'm excited about tomorrow.
Yes.
Tomorrow, Sunday morning, is our graduation Sunday. We're celebrating all the graduates that are in our church, all the way from kindergarten all the way up to college graduates.
Yes.
And also our JLS scholarship winners are going to be in the house sharing our scholarship. Oh, and we're preaching as well. I'm going to have worship.
Yes.
The sermon tomorrow, I am excited though. I'm going to talk about overcomers.
Oh boy.
Overcomers. I am so
right
pumped.
Here.
I'm ready. Hope you're ready too. Join us tomorrow. 11:30.
Overcomers. I have overcome a lot of things.
A little and a few times.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Yeah,
a real overcomer right here.
so tomorrow, 11:30. If you can't get there, join us online. Otherwise, join us. We are there. Join us in person. And celebration, after service celebration, have a great time. If you're in Rochester, come and join us tomorrow, 1405 Lowell Avenue. Otherwise, join us online. People will be watching throughout the world. I know.
Yes.
And we're going to have a great time. That's so right. God bless everybody. Thank you for all those thumbs up you see coming.
Yes.
Thank you for all those comments.
Thank you, Dr. Georgiana Land. We will talk soon.
Daphne, glad to have you with us.
Yes. Everybody.
Cecil, everybody. Thank you.
Okay.
Making yourself known. And we will see you guys next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Good night. Stay safe.